Guillermo,
Mark,
what's up, my man?
good to see you, brother.
Dude, it's always good to see you. It's so different now seeing you on a screen, bro. We used to record these episodes in Will's secret studio in his basement. And there were no cameras, so it sort of limited our ability to do this on the YouTube and on the reels and whatnot. So this affords us some opportunities to expand a little bit. But I miss you, man. I miss being in a room with you. We gotta get together.
All right, all right. It's a date. It's a date.
Let's do it.
We're going to hold each other accountable. A very coaching and therapist kind of thing. We do have to hold each other accountable to that. But
Yeah.
more importantly than that, what's on your mind today, brother?
Well, actually, accountability kind of, I guess, rolls into this in a way because I'm actually sitting here right now and my legs are on fire, Will, because this morning I got, I think I mentioned a few weeks ago that I was back in the gym, right? And I was for like a week, and then I wasn't so much for like, say, 3 weeks, right? And today, got back to it and I actually met with a trainer and he put me through the ringer for quads, glutes, all those bottom half muscle groups, and so for a long time, fitness has really been very important to me. However, it's somewhat in the past 6 months gone by the wayside. Life's kind of gotten in the way. I've made so many excuses, from the gym nearest to my house closing, to the new one that I belong to being a whole extra 8 minutes away. Will, um, and so just getting out of the routine. And so, my question to you is, when life gets in the way, what do people do? How do you advise them?
Being thrown off course. Is that what
Being
it
thrown
is?
off course. Yeah, that's a
You mean
good synopsis.
you mean welcome to life? Okay, great. So you mean welcome to life? Okay,
Yeah, sure.
fantastic. No, it's a great subject because I do believe that most people have good intentions to stick with their good routines. And, you talked about accountability being, an amazing tool for people to stick with their commitments. And we've talked about accountability in the past, but getting thrown off course is going to be an inevitability of the process. And this ties very much into the concept of trusting the process. I almost want to say to people, good, you've been thrown off course. That's actually part of the process. Good. Now it's up to you, to the old cliche, to get back on that horse again.
Mhm.
And now we're talking about the concept of resiliency, not being too hard on yourself, and most importantly, remembering why you started doing it in the first place. That's
Mm,
what I like to do.
right on, having a purposeful goal. Yeah, so, did you ever read Grit, Angela Duckworth?
But yeah,
Yeah, super
great one.
famous book. She defined grit, and I thought this was a really, really cool. I'm somewhat of a math guy, not like a not like a calculus guy. My limitations are pretty stark. Um, but she defined it as passion plus perseverance, right, equals grit, and you got to have both. And so let's just stay with fitness for a second. Like, I've been passionate about it, right? But my perseverance, my willingness to be consistent, um, because sometimes the alarm goes off at 7 a.m. and it's like, oh gosh. And I'm very fortunate that my alarm only goes off at 7. There's a lot of folks that their alarms go off at 5:30 and they're willing, or 4 o'clock for that matter, and they're willing to get up and, get in the car and drive that whole 12 minutes to the gym and do what matters most to them, or I shouldn't say what matters most, but what's important to them, because they've persevered through the trials and tribulations and the difficulties when the schedules get tight. And so what do you find are some of the things, in the clients you have, what are some of the things that knock them off course? What are some of the things that interfere with their ability to follow through and be consistent?
Yeah. No, it's great. And it's, again, the first thing I want to say is that it happens to everyone. So if anybody's going through this type of rut where they broke a promise to themselves, first things first, again, welcome to the club. But the thing that I say to people is, you said it earlier, and I cannot stress this enough. Why did you start doing this in the first place? Getting people, I'm convinced most people have amnesia. They forget why they started doing it in the first place. And it's my job to kind of wake them up again and remind them that this is, there's a very important why related to this. There are people outside of you that are affected by this goal or this beautiful thing you're trying to create. This is aligned with who you are. You
Mhm.
can, you had a vision for your future. That's the reason why you started doing it in the first place. You have a plan of attack. You fell off the course, but there is a blueprint. And, last but not least, reminding people to celebrate along the way is how I
Mm.
kind of consistently get people to
Yeah,
remember what they're
yeah,
doing.
you mentioned having a vision for the future, and I think that's a major, as odd as it might sound, when we come up against, some version of friction, right? I think very often people go into some version of fight or flight, right? It's like it creates extra stress, and there's this neurological relationship. And it's an unfortunate neurological relationship between fight or flight and increased stress and decreased activation of a region of our brain called the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain that's responsible for things like planning and discipline. And so when we come up against this friction, which we interpret as again a variation of threat, we our ability to plan kind of goes out the window, and we look for short-term relief, which might be a withdrawal or an avoidance, let's say, from that long-term goal. So that long-term vision is traded in for this short-term relief and even energy conservation, because when we're in fight or flight, we need to use all of the energy at our disposal. And it sounds crazy because there's one more thing on my schedule. That's it's not a real imminent threat to my survival, but our brains really don't have they're not very good at determining what's, mortal threat
Mhm.
versus, just 21st century, oh my gosh, there's one more demand on my plate.
Very good. And again, it's the oldest joke in the world that I say to people is, and we've talked about it before, because I'll pick on you. When somebody says, "I'd love to work out, I just don't have the,"
Time.
everybody says the same thing, and it's okay
Yeah.
if you're one of those people who says it. But I tell every single one of my clients to tell the truth, which is, don't say the word time anymore. Say the word priority. Say
Mm.
it's just not a priority to you. And I think, unfortunately, like you were talking about regarding this friction, is that when the going gets tough, the tough get going. But also, when the going gets tough, there's also ways to just soothe yourself with, you know, sleeping in, with it's again with watching TV, with
Yeah.
abusing drugs and alcohol, with choosing a lesser dream, a
Right, right.
clearer path to a lesser dream.
Well, that's it, man. When life gets overwhelming, the brain naturally defaults to survival mode. So sleeping in, watching that, or binging on Netflix, it makes us feel safe. That ensures survival. And again, it's crazy to think that, like, it's the end of the year right now, so it's May. I'm sorry, it's June. I can't even keep up. So there's so many end of school events that my kids have right now. I don't know about you.
Yeah, same.
My daughter's moving up. My older guy's graduating high school. So there's like every single night, every single morning, there's something going on. So we've even experienced it with our work, Will, where like we've had to postpone recording dates, or we've had to postpone meeting dates just because life has gotten in the way. But here we are. It's a Wednesday night. It's 9:37. Actually, the Knicks are playing game 1 of the NBA Finals right now, but there is a priority that you and I have made to be here on our respective computers, you know, in our basements and recording this pod because it's important to us. So
Right.
when life gets overwhelming, the brain defaults to survival mode. So what is it that helps people cut through that instinct to just be like, nope, can't do it. Got to sleep in. Got to watch an extra episode of whatever show because it makes me feel safe and it makes me feel comfortable.
Mm.
What do we do?
Uh, That's it. Again, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And, there's the old cliche of an angel and a devil on your shoulder. And without getting too much into that old cliche, because I watched a lot of cartoons with the old angel and devil on your shoulder. But I used to do this trick with myself before doing cold plunges. I don't think I ever told you about this. I have a cold plunge in my backyard. And without a doubt, almost every single time before I get in it, I'm like kind of like a baby, kind of like a chicken, because
Sure.
it's going to be very, very
It's
cold.
going to be cold.
It's going to be very cold, and for 3 to 5 minutes, I'm going to be very, very cold. And so
Three
here
to
I am.
five
It's
minutes?
sure, yeah, and
Dude.
so yeah, whatever. Every single time I don't wanna get in, and every single time I make myself get in, and there's only one trick that I say to myself every time is I create this future version of myself, and he shows up, and he talks to me, and he says,
Mm,
you're gonna be proud of yourself and you're gonna like who you
yeah.
are on the other side. So I actually start having a conversation with future Will instead of present Will. Because when you think about it, every single thing that we're doing today, it's really not for today, unless it's like pleasure seeking, and there's nothing wrong with pleasure and being in the moment and experience. But I think what we're talking about is things like neglecting the gym or
Mhm.
neglecting your writing. You're doing that for your future self. And so the real question is, who's more important? Your future self or your current self?
Yeah, I've said to clients before, we tell people all the time, "Take care of yourself," right? But as crazy as this might sound, um, pluralizing that, take care of yourselves,
Ooh, I'm gonna
right?
steal that.
Because everything you do today, like to your point, everything you do today is going to affect your future self. Even pleasure seeking, because but sometimes pleasure seeking is at the expense of something that would benefit a future version of Will. And what are we sacrificing? Because you can't have anything of value without sacrificing something of value. So sometimes we need to sacrifice, an extra episode of Game of Thrones or an extra hour of sleep in order to double down on that commitment, whether it's the gym or it's being here on a session with you or it's spending quality time with our spouses, because listen, man, I mean, there's so many excuses we can make, whether it's, work got in the way. There's been plenty of time. Listen, man, I have so much guilt sometimes, Will, because I think about all of the games and all of the just moments with my kids that I missed because I have to get some extra work in. And yeah, work is valuable. Work is important to me, and work is the means by which I support my family and I contribute in that way. But at the end of the day, what's of greater value here, bro?
Right, right. No, but once again, even when people do get thrown off course, I think the first things first is radical forgiveness to yourself.
Mm,
It's like you messed up. What are you gonna do? You're gonna stew in it? Like it's
mhm.
over. You skipped a day of writing, or you made a promise to yourself you were gonna do this many days in the gym and it didn't happen.
Tell me about should statements.
Oh, you mean shitting all over yourself? Come
Let's
on.
not should ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're going to mess up. It's literally like I've said this to people all the time. Two steps forward and one step back is still one step
You've
forward.
netted one step forward.
Yeah, you still netted one. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, take the L. You lost. I mean, that doesn't mean you have to like it,
Mhm,
but learn from it, do less of them. It's the same thing with writers where, I literally will coach writers groups from an accountability standpoint. And literally it's how many, daisy chains and X's on a calendar can you string together in a row? And
mhm.
then life gets in the way and they miss a day and they feel so bad about themselves for missing a day. And it's like, okay, just start creating another chain. It's okay.
Right. Well, that's good advice because and you kinda let off today acknowledging that, like, no, setbacks are a feature and not a bug. They're to be expected. It's part of the rhythm of life, and it's part of if you're gonna get better at anything, expect there to be setbacks. But the other thing that I find is frequently a roadblock, something that gets in the way, is sort of an all or nothing perfectionistic kind of mindset that a lot of folks take towards whatever the endeavor might be. Like, I only have 15 minutes to exercise. Well, that's fine. Exercise for 15 minutes. If that's all the time you have, we let intensity sort of override consistency.
Hmm.
So if it's not the ideal, if it's not exactly what we want that endeavor to look like, we just don't do it. So this dichotomy, there's a list of what are called cognitive distortions, right? And should statements are one of them. All it basically means is distorted ways of interpreting information that that evoke a set of emotions that are unnecessary, a set of negative emotions, maybe I should say, that are unnecessary. So should statements almost always equate to some version or variation of shame, right? So I should have gone to the gym yesterday. And the pivot, I think the central pivot for should statements is transforming them into will statements. Will,
Hey,
right?
I like bold statements.
Yeah. But I should have gone to the gym yesterday. Well, I will go to the gym today because as soon as we transform that, as soon as we perform that pivot, well, now it's goal oriented. And we're taking that amygdala response, we're taking that threat sensor that is associated with should statements because whenever we make a should statement, like I said, it evokes shame, and shame is closely related to fear. And so let me
Mm,
explain how that works. So when humans experience shame, right? We're very tribal social animals. Shame often historically could equate to being cast off, excommunicated from your tribe. And Will on his own, I love you, bro. You're a powerhouse, but Will on his own doesn't stand much of a chance in the wild. So risking being cast off from the social group could mean death. And so there's that relationship between shame and fear. So when we start to feel shame, that fight or flight response becomes so activated. And again, the part of your brain that's responsible for discipline, for planning, for sort of those executive functions, the higher order thinking is diminished.
mm,
And now we're just looking for safety. We're looking for security. So as soon as we take should out of our lexicon, we're able to really keep the threat sensitivity out of the equation. And the other part, like I mentioned, dichotomous thinking, all or nothing, right?
mm.
Either I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to spend an hour there, I'm going to be dripping sweat, I'm going to get cardio in, I'm going to get a good lift, or it's not even worth going. It doesn't make any sense. A little bit matters, and reframing it that way can make all the difference.
I love it. And look, you're speaking my language with tiny targets and little bits because I tell people who are aspiring writers and who are actually professional writers who life is getting in the way or they have multiple commitments. Uh, I'm not that good at math, but 30 minutes a day times 30 days is 15 hours.
Yeah,
So that's 15 hours. That's the equivalent of you taking like a weekend off to go writing each
right.
month. That's a lot of writing. It really does,
And 30 minutes a day, it doesn't sound like that much.
but it compounds on itself.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you got me thinking about a lot regarding people who have fallen off the horse, who have let themselves go, and now they're riddled with shame. And maybe they're, again, this is really interesting to think about in terms of fear. There's a very common thing that happens with fighters after they get knocked out, especially ones that were on the up and up. They get knocked out, they lose their confidence. They've got
Mm,
shame, right? Now they're a little afraid. So, what do you think that their trainer's trying to do? One of the higher states of consciousness is courage. You're still afraid, but you overcome it with courage, with bravery, right? Literally can't have bravery and courage without a little bit of fear. It's by its
yeah,
definition.
right,
So, you know what they usually give fighters? It's called a tune up fight. They never put them back in the ring against a great fighter. They put
right.
them in against somebody who's like, "This is a good
Wonker.
tune-up fight for you."
Right.
No, it's not like you're gonna just it's not gonna be a walk in the park,
Dude,
but
imagine being that guy. Imagine being that guy going into the fight knowing I'm my sole purpose here is to just get the you know what knocked out of me in order to boost this guy's confidence.
well, it's a real thing, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just sparring partners exist, right? There's
Right,
training
right.
horses, in horse racing, right?
Sure.
Just to kinda make another person feel better about themselves, but
Right.
I don't really mean it in
No,
that sense. I
I'm
really
just
mean
kidding.
it more in, like, the getting back into the rhythm again, getting back into, the habit again, starting small, starting really small. There's a philosophy that I call, you know, acceptable acceptable, ideal, and minimum. And, ideally, someone's going to go to the gym for 2 or 3 hours, right? That's what they would say. The minimum that somebody could do is like 1 or 2 minutes. And I make clients do this. I actually tell them what's the ideal, what's the minimum, and I'm like, what's the acceptable? What's something between 2 hours in the gym and 2 minutes? And they all
Mhm.
say the same thing. It's like half an hour, 45 minutes. I could get there and back in 45 minutes or an hour. And I'm like, then do that. Get back on that horse. Get back and have a little tune-up fight.
Right. It's like don't let perfect get in the way of good enough.
I think that's really what this keeps coming back to is that and I hadn't really thought about the shame of it because when you and I got thrown off our rhythm and we were in and Mark and I are open books here. We were in an amazing groove where we were doing multiple shows a week, consistently seeing each other. We didn't have, I mean, I'm not saying we didn't have a lot going on in our lives. We were busy, but we were really, really excited and we were really attacking. And then one guy's got a sickness, one guy's got a
Right.
vacation, one guy's kid does this, and all of a sudden you're thrown off the horse. And we just doubled down again on kind of like remembering why we're doing this
Yeah.
and what it means for our souls and for each other and our commitment. And it was almost like it needed to happen,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
that we could
I,
talk
I
about this.
I totally agree. Right. And it was meant to be because ultimately, and we talk about values, and I don't even think we've touched on values nearly enough. And there will be so much more content on that subject because I think that is so central to this idea of taking own your values, and because your values are really going to help you identify what your north star is, what your purpose is, right? And the purpose of this endeavor is to sift through some really complicated stuff that I think all too often people try to overly simplify and then maybe misunderstand. They get kind of lost in the sauce because they haven't sussed out the details of the problem. They haven't really identified exactly, like we talked before, the relationship between shame and fear. And how many people do you know that are walking around constantly uttering out loud or internally should statements or engaging in this dichotomous thinking that haven't really observed it, that haven't really identified it internally, become self-aware of it. And all of those thoughts, all of those cognitions are just holding them back or just eliciting some negative emotion that is completely unnecessary. Listen, the purpose of therapy, in my estimation, is not to make someone feel 100% okay all the time. That's impossible. It's an unrealistic expectation. The purpose of therapy ultimately is to recognize and accept, hey man, there's going to be suffering in life, inevitably, right? But there's also going to be suffering that we sort of cultivate on our own via our distorted thinking or whatever beliefs that we might have that are just out of sorts or out of line with reality. And if we can separate those two things and eliminate to the furthest of our ability the latter group, that's good therapy. And
Mm.
that's what, this movement of own your life, own your cognitions, own your beliefs, own your attitudes, own your suffering as well. That's what this is about, bro.
I love it. And again, one other thing I want to add is that making people remember that they're not alone, that their
Yeah.
experience, while it is their own experience, it is not unique to them. And I know everybody's egotistical, and I know it's your only life you've ever had, or the only one you remember. Now you're getting into my reincarnation stuff, but you're not alone in these things, like getting thrown off and getting discouraged and feeling like you're not good enough, or feeling like like you said, all the shoulds. I tell clients all the time, especially my entrepreneurial and creative clients, that there's a common 6-step process to any project, and it's known as the creative process, which starts with number one, this is awesome. Number two, this is tricky. Number three, this is crap. Number four, I am crap. Number five, this might be okay. And then last but not least, number six, this is
This is
awesome
awesome.
once
Yeah.
again. So it's like we all follow that same circle. And if you're somewhere in that kind of valley, just know that you're there's another step afterward.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Is getting thrown off course isn't the exception. You're gonna go through that valley. It's the rule,
And learn from it,
and learn
thank
from it
it, and
and
you'll
grow
become
from it.
stronger from it.
That's it. Good to see you, Guillermo.
Good to see you, Mark.
All right, brother. Have a good night.
Till next time. Good night, buddy.
Later.
What's on Your Mind is a production of Oil Media. Subscribe for more reflections, blogs, and podcasts at oylmedia.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.